Hello everyone and welcome to Sheepo. Really quickly before we get into the run, I want to quickly explain a couple things. One of those things is going to be why we run this game on easy rather than normal or hard. There aren't many differences between all the difficulties. The main one and the reason we play on easy is actually health. We get additional health drops and the most amount of checkpoints on easy. And as a result of that, we can do a lot more damage boosts throughout the run and save quite a bit of time compared to the other difficulties. The other thing that I really want to quickly explain is the main movement technique that we're going to be doing throughout the majority of the run, which is going to be half hopping. Half hopping is named after half coordinated, a GDQ favorite, and is the ability to basically double jump without using your double jump. By inputting a jump really quickly after jumping off the ground, you actually can do another grounded jump, and as a result, get a ton of height and maintain your double jump. As a result of this, we can do crazy things like climb walls and gain a lot of height to skip certain intended paths, and as a result, basically kind of do a decent amount of sequence breaking. All right, let's start off this run. So Sheepo is pretty action-packed from wall to wall. So there isn't a lot of room for explanation of lore. So I'm going to save that just for a little bit later on in the run when we have a little bit more downtime and we have a general idea of what's happening on screen. So to start off, it's just a simple tutorial teaching you the basics of movement. Even in here, we're kind of breaking the intended way of doing this by using the half hop thing that I explained a little bit earlier. Entering the spaceship and leaving the spaceship is really fast. We do it within like half a minute and we are already off to the races. So starting off, nothing super crazy here so far. The walkie-talkies here are Cynthia, who has been on the spaceship and was giving us the tutorial and the basic explanation of the run. What you're seeing here are launchers, which allow you to enter them and then pick a direction and launch in that direction. And they give you a ton of speed, which you can see just here. These are going to be located all over the run, and we're going to be using them all the time to just gain a ton of speed and hold on to a ton of speed to basically just save a ton of time. So here we're actually going to be seeing our first instance of the what I like to call phase cube. Basically, it picks the direction in which you're facing and you go through it and gain a ton of speed. We use that one there to actually gain a ton of speed since there's a long horizontal section there where we just run. So using the phase cube to gain a bunch of speed there saves quite a bit of time, about a second. There's another one there. These, what I'm collecting right now, and there was a little bit more in the previous room as well. These are what we refer to as key orbs. Basically, there's a bunch of locked doors in this game which require you to collect a bunch of orbs like you'll see here. And once you get close enough to the door, they just kind of go in and unlock the door and allow you to progress throughout the story. So we're actually about to enter our first boss fight. This is a save point, by the way, if you ever were curious. And we're just not going to fight the boss. We're actually going to climb this left wall here, about halfway up, because that's probably about the right point for us to get the most amount of speed out of this, because the rest of the boss fight, kind of jungle gym, is a bit faster to climb than doing the rest of it. And by using half hopping and general really good movement, we're able to basically skip that whole boss fight. And we collect our first egg of the game. What the eggs allow us to do actually is just transform into different creatures around the world of Sheepo. We are just got the longbird egg, which allows us to transform into the bird. The bird is super useful and can be seen basically all over the run. Every time you collect an egg, you're going to be seeing that particular thing used quite a bit over different sections of the run, but the bird is quite useful and very fun to use. So we just entered the wastelands where we're going to be basically making our way towards the next egg. There's nothing super crazy happening in this section, just a lot of really optimized movement to save as much time as possible. this next room, we're actually going to be passing what we call Art Bird right there. We don't interact with any NPCs, but she is relatively important, and you'll kind of realize why later on in the run. Again, this is just a lot of super optimized movement and just trying to get places as fast as possible using the most optimal forms of movement possible. There are a lot of really interesting sequence breaks in this game, as well as like really cool skips and stuff like that. There aren't a lot in this section, but there are quite a few pretty game-breaking sequence breaks, which we'll see a little bit later on. There's actually one right after this section of the run. So now we're going to be entering our first real boss fight, if you want to call it that. This is Deadworm. This boss fight, along with basically all the other boss fights in this game, are not really what you would call boss fights. They're basically auto-scrollers, because this game, rather than giving you weapons and stuff like most other Metroidvanias, gives you just abilities, like the bird that we had, for example. So as a result, these are basically just stay alive, don't die, and you will beat the boss. As a result of that, nothing much to talk about with this boss. Basically, don't get hit and live. Awesome. So as you can see, we basically just beat the boss by luring him into smashing into the spikes. And now we get the Spineworm egg, which allows us to turn into the Spineworm. So this basically allows us to travel throughout the underground tunnels that are kind of littered around the world of Sheepo. There are only particular sections that have them, but we're about to head to the next section that has like the dead worm, or sorry, not the dead worm, but the spine worm section of the run. But before we do that, we're about to do a relatively large sequence break, which I missed the first time in this run, unfortunately. But we are going to enter the slime boss room backwards. And as a result of that, we actually just beat the boss and get the egg for free. So this is a big reason why we have a distinction between the all bosses category and the 6 eggs category. Like I mentioned, the first boss is kind of skipped because we can just climb the left wall and don't even initiate the boss fight. And there is another instance of a boss we kind of just skip and continue on with our run. It's really interesting because basically I would say all bosses is kind of very similar to 105% in the sense that you collect slightly less feathers than you would collect in the longer category, or sorry, in compared to 105% than you would in all bosses, but the runs are relatively similar-ish in length. So now we're making our way back through the landing area of the game. We have to make our way to the left of the spaceship that we were just landed from and head over to Deepwood, which will be the next area of the game. as you can see, this section on the way back has a ton of momentum conservation. You're basically just shooting out of launchers and holding onto your speed as much as you can to get through that section as fast as possible. So, it's not Deepwood, it's Underbelly. That's my bad for making that mistake. The Underbelly is not a super interesting area of the game. We haven't found any crazy sequence breaks for this area. It's mostly just a lot of super optimized movement, kind of similar to the wasteland that we were just in. There is a lot of pretty interesting movement though, if you pay close attention to what's going on. There's a lot of like cutting corners and making sure we don't clip on anything we don't need to. Fun fact, the worms can survive outside of the walls and kind of allows you to kind of jump through between different little areas like that. You'll see that again right here. There's a couple scary damage boosts in this area of the run. It's not particularly that one, but there's one very similar to that room that's coming up right after this section that is a little terrifying, since you basically live through the section with 1 HP. So if you were to get hit again, you would die. This section has not the most of them, but the next section does. So as you can see there, I actually shouldn't have taken damage there, but this one damage boost here allows us to get down here and skip just basically going around the circle an entire time over. The movement in this game is super nice. It feels super good to play and very enjoyable to watch in my opinion. There's a lot of just going super fast and dodging things and doing very precise movement that feels very cool to play and watch at the same time. So this is probably one of my most dreaded rooms in the game. It is relatively inconsistent from my experiences, but it is super cool. It's basically just very optimized movement. Now we're going to meet my favorite bird of the game. I like to call him Gamer Bird. He is also known as the Barnyard Bird. Boneyard Bird. So again, this area is just a lot of optimized movement, a lot of finding little exploits like grabbing the worm through the wall there and stuff like that to go just a tiny bit faster. Using launchers to gain quite a bit of speed here. We do a pretty nice damage boost here to just save a bit of time. You get a lot of invincibility after a single damage boost, so we're basically able to damage boost through all of those blades there and save a decent amount of time having to wait for those to spin all the way around. So we're about to enter our second auto-scroller boss of the run. This boss is Froggo King, and the lore is that he just ate a bunch of Froggos, and we need to make him sick. So we're gonna make him jump around a little bit, do little stomps, and eventually he's gonna get a little sick and spit a couple Froggos at us. He's not feeling that hot. And this boss, like the other boss, is just don't get hit, fly around, and just generally not a very difficult boss. Especially since in most of these bosses on easy, they give you full HP regen halfway through the fight, which is really nice. So you don't really have to worry about getting hit all that much. I tend to find the second cycle of this boss a lot easier. The first cycle, he actually fires relatively randomly at you, but in the second cycle here, he actually just fires in a clockwise pattern, making it super simple to dodge. All you do is you kind of just stay on the opposite side of it, and you'll never really be in an area where you need to worry about taking damage at all. What you're seeing me do here as well is just running underneath his legs to kind of just make him jump up and down. It's just a way to keep him in an area where you're a little bit more comfortable with where he is. And there you go. Froggo King is a little sick. Sentinel, his Froggo's free, and giving us the Froggo Shrine. The Froggo Shrine is nothing super crazy once we get this Froggo Egg here. Well, actually, it is super nice. It's the way to fast travel in this game. We only use it like twice throughout this run in particular, but there is it's quite useful in a lot of the longer runs to kind of skip around. Here's a nice little sequence break, which I missed, unfortunately, in this run. But if you were able to fly fast enough, you can get up there and just clip that edge without having to half hop off the left platform there. It's very mash intensive. Alrighty, we go back up to the landing and back down this left side here, and we head to the last section of this run, or I guess you could call second to last section. The last section we're in for like basically one zone, and then we're out. So we enter Deep Woods. So this area is probably the most difficult and risky area of this run. There is a lot of places where we do damage boosts that result in us being left at 1 HP. So if we're taking one more damage, we die and have to reset to the most recent checkpoint. However, it is probably one of the funnest areas of the run, I would say. There's a lot of interesting skips that are performed in this area, and allow us to like save a bit of time. Like there, by using a like bird to worm grab, which has a little bit extra range than you grabbing anything else in a normal run, or just like grabbing any other normal creature. We're able to skip the entire left side of that previous room. This room is nothing special. It's just basically a large maze where you need to collect 2 key orbs and then head to the door. Now, quickly before we get to the next room, I'm going to explain that we actually found a new strategy, which I didn't do in this run, but I will overlay over this run so you can kind of see. Normally, you lift the logs like this, and you are just to run around through them. But we found a way that in the second and third room, that you can actually just clip through and grab the launcher through the log and skip having to run on the treadmill. So it saves a little bit of time, and it's something that's quite easy, just something that isn't in this run, unfortunately, since it was recorded a little bit earlier before that trick was found. So here again is a little sequence break. So usually you would want to take that slime and go all the way around, but by half hopping we can clip the edge and just fly over. Here again is an area where you want to be really careful, because by damage boosting you're left at 1 HP and you don't want to take another piece of damage or you will die. Here again, the slime is a bit slow going down this wall, so just damage boosting through the spikes is nice, and we can grab another piece of HP there, which allows us to do a quick damage boost and get over here, leaving again us at 1 HP, so not super crazy. But this is a area where we won't be taking any, there's no risk of taking damage before our next checkpoint, which is kind of nice. As long as we make it through that last little area with enough HP, we're okay. So take the checkpoint and we're back at full HP again. Here's basically the first time we'll ever use the slime, and one of the very few times that we will. There's even another slime on the wall here, but we just skip that because it's a little bit faster to do a damage boost and climb the wall with half hops instead. Here we do a damage boost and just go through as fast as possible. There's a way to do a grounded one there as well, which is a little bit faster, but the pattern of the crushers there wasn't too right for my run, so I had to actually take the slime there. Here, we don't want to take damage on this first one, but there's a checkpoint right after the second spinning saw, so we can just damage boost through this one and grab this checkpoint. Here, we damage boost at the bottom and grab a slime just to make sure we don't take damage again, because we want to have the HP for the crusher that's like right up here, considering you can get pretty bad patterns sometimes where you can end up taking damage, and as a result, you would want the HP. So we're about to enter the last boss fight of the game, which, funnily enough, isn't much of a boss fight, because we have a way of skipping it. It doesn't look like we're skipping much, but we actually, by taking the worm and staying in the log at the beginning and skipping the intro cutscene for the boss, we're able to basically prevent taking damage entirely. And what this allows us to do is basically just do nothing. So this would be an absolutely perfect time for donations throughout the run, considering this is basically like a minute and a half, 2 minutes of doing nothing. So here comes the last one. Boss fight is almost over. Once this one ends, we're a bit frozen for half a second, but then we'll run to the right and collect the egg, which is in the next room. And we're almost done the run. This is going to be the one time we use the Frogo Shrine that I mentioned earlier. There's one in the top right of this room, which we're going to use to go to the left of the spaceship, right near the start. And we're going to do probably the biggest sequence break of the game. We're going to climb the chute that you're supposed to fall down at the end of the game to get right to the end of where the game is and where the last egg is. So by climbing this wall backwards here, this chute that you're supposed to fall down, and making this semi-difficult jump around the hump in the wall here, we're able to basically save a decent amount of time, actually, or not even a decent amount, a ton of time, by entering the ceiling backwards like this. If you're at all interested, this is the reason that any percent is only 5 minutes long, because all you really need to do is get the long bird egg that we got earlier and fall down here. In this case, you wouldn't have the Frogo Shrine, so you can't go down like this, but you just fall down the chute and go to the ship, and that is the end of Sheepo. Thanks for watching. I think this run is super interesting and probably one of my favorite speedruns that I've ever done or watched, and I would love to get this into GDQ, and I think a lot of people would enjoy it as well. Thanks for watching.